I'm Regine Mora. I go by Mommy Mango on all of my platforms. I help moms strengthen and tighten their mommy tummies. I help to improve bladder function, helps to improve back problems. I've helped thousands of women, and today I want to talk about three things that I want you to look out for when you're doing your exercises to know if that exercise is going to help you or make your situation worse. Why am I talking about this? Because I'm a mom of four, and after my second baby, I really struggled with strengthening my core. I had back pain that was super debilitating. And that was probably the biggest thing that really made me look into this. I mean, I had a really loose tummy. It was annoying because people asked me if I was pregnant, and so I was really really motivated to try to figure this thing out. I also struggle with pelvic floor issues, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that today because one of the things I want you to look out for affects the pelvic floor. Two of the things affects the pelvic floor. So if you have a loose, weak mommy tummy, if you are dealing with bladder issues or pain, I want you to listen to this talk. So first, I want to really very briefly explain what happens to the baby what happens to the body postpartum. During pregnancy, we get super stretched out with the baby. All of our connective tissues. Last week on my YouTube channel, I posted about Mommy Mango's my YouTube channel. I posted about what gets stretched out during pregnancy. What gets stretched out is connective tissue and muscles. Now, a lot of people thought last week that I was talking about the uterus and how it stretches out every time you have a baby. Yes, it does. But what we're talking about, what creates the loose, weak mommy tummy, is the stretched out connective tissue and the stretched out muscles. So you have the muscles here. I lift up my chair a little bit. You have the muscles here, and here in between, you see that white part? That's connective tissue. It's connecting all the muscles together. It's also wrapping all the muscles. Connective tissue connects the muscles together, and it's wrapping all the muscles. So all of the connective tissue and the muscles stretch out during pregnancy, and just like a balloon that you blow up and you deflate it, that balloon stays a little bit stretched out. Every time you blow up a balloon, every time it gets a little bit more stretched out than before, right? That's what happens with our connective tissue and our muscles. And so when that is the problem, when that is the concern with our mommy tummy, then doing traditional ab exercises like sit-ups and planks and burpees and those types of things, they're not really helping to strengthen that stretched out container, the stretched out connective tissue, the stretched out muscles, because those type of exercises usually just focus on the front. They focus on the rectus abdominis because everyone wants the six pack, and that's okay. It's not going to solve the entire problem because it's the entire canister that's stretched out that we need to address. We have to address that in a way that's going to be helpful. And that's why I didn't see results after doing all the right exercises for a year, all the flat ab exercises, all that six pack, type get your six pack back muscle exercises. I wasn't seeing results because it wasn't what I needed. Okay. So, not only does your connective tissue and your muscles, not only do they get stretched out during pregnancy, but what happens is you get ab separation during pregnancy. Ab separation is where the connective tissue at the midline stretches even more. So you have stretching that affects all of the connective tissue, but you have even a bit more here at the midline. So you'll have this thin line of separation, and then you could have something wider like this. So it'll stretch out to becoming from this thin line to something wider like this. That's what we call diastasis recti. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. I have a poll. Did you guys try the poll? I don't know if the poll worked. I've never done the poll before, but there was a poll. I don't know when you came on. And I will answer these questions as soon as I'm finished talking, just so I don't get too far off track, because I really think it's super important that you know these three things so that you know if an exercise is helping you or making matters worse. But diastasis recti is literally means ab separation. It doesn't mean there's any actual separation or a hole or anything. That's a hernia if you have a hole in the tissue. But it's just where this midline tissue, the connective tissue, stretches, and the rectus abdominis and the abdominal muscles kind of move apart from each other because of the stretching of the connective tissue at the midline, okay? That's what diastasis recti is. How do you know if you have it? Really quickly, do this test with me. Lean back, look down. If you see coning or doming coming up through your midline, it might look something like this. Coming up through your midline, That is ab separation. That's diastasis recti. I'll invite you to say me in the comments if you see that. If you see that, that's ab separation, okay? And that is a common cause of mommy tummy. That's an indicator that the rest of your core is likely very stretched. Sometimes we have a mommy tummy without having the ab separation, and it doesn't really matter, because if you have that stretching across the board, you're still going to get that kind of more pregnant belly look when you get bloated, or if you have excess weight or anything like that. That's what I had. I lost all the baby weight after I had my kids. I've had 4, and I still had this stretched out canister here, and it looked like a baby bump, and I had people asking me if I was pregnant, and that's when I was like, okay, something's not coming back together here, especially when I started experiencing back pain. Okay, so let's get into the 3 things I want you to check for when you are assessing, is this exercise going to be helpful for me, or hurtful for me? Okay, so number 1, I want you to assess when you're doing an exercise, like even right now, you can do a sit-up wherever you are, whatever you're doing, do a little sit-up and see what you see at the midline. If you see excessive doming coming up through your midline, that is a sign that that exercise is not appropriate for you. Now, 1, you may not be engaging your core properly, like the way I teach in my exercises and my programs. Or 2, your deep core just might not be strong enough to handle that exercise. So you need to do one of 2 things. 1, first you have to back off of that exercise and assess. Are you strengthening your core properly? Are you engaging? Let me say engaging, not strengthening. Are you engaging your core properly to actually flatten this area? Like the exercises that I show you, like on my TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're watching this, or in my 8-week core challenge, and all of my exercises, my 28-day, whatever, all my exercises, by the way, are in the link in my bio. I have a 28-day free program that you can check out. If you're doing those exercises are geared towards flattening this area out, engaging this mid part here, and when you do those exercises, you should actually see flattening occur. Now, when you're doing exercises that are not super helpful, you'll see excessive doming occur, okay? So that is a big sign that that exercise is not doing it for you. And that could be why you've been doing all those sit-ups, and you've been doing all those crunches, you've been doing all those planks, but you're not seeing a difference. And that's because that exercise isn't doing the thing it needs to do. And we need to strengthen this midline tissue, not stress it out by putting more pressure that we aren't ready for. Okay, so as a note here, people will say, well, does that mean I can't do these things with diastasis recti? If you have diastasis recti, you can do whatever you want to. You just need to be strong enough and body aware enough to know if that's helping you or hurting you. So you could have diastasis recti and you can see this ab separation, but if you know how to engage your core to minimize the separation, the doming, and you just see, let's just say you even see a little bit of doming. If you see a little bit of doming and it's not really firm to the touch, it's not excessive. That's why I say excessive doming. It's not excessive. It's not like going as far as it can dome. It's not feeling firm and hard. Then you're fine. You're fine because you're not pushing it beyond its limit. All right, you don't want to push it to its limit, have that pressure when you lean back. You don't want to push it to its limit and then push beyond it, because you can cause more stretching. Quick story that I've told before, I had a lady come to me who wanted help with her mommy tummy because she did CrossFit and was really trying to flatten that tummy, but she was doing stuff like sit-ups and causing this excessive doming all the time. When she was done with that program, she had a pointier belly than before. Okay, and that's because she pushed it beyond its limit instead of engaging it properly and doing exercises that would help to strengthen that core, that midsection, that midline bulging, and flatten it out. Okay, all right, so number 1, when you're doing exercises, look for midline excessive doming. If you see excessive doming, that's a sign that you need to back off of that exercise. Learn how to engage properly and strengthen your deep core so that you can better manage that particular exercise. Okay, number 1. Number 2, I want you to look for pain. So a lot of stuff that you will hear out in the exercise world when they're just like, do it, push through the pain. That is a big no-no. It's a sign from our body to us, telling us that something is not right. Okay, here's a real quick example. This is something that I've experienced. So when I had my first baby, he was coming out, and I pushed extra hard because it was my first baby. I didn't know, and they were like, I really wanted to get up and squat, but they kept pushing me on my back. I don't know if this happened to you. They kept pushing me on my back and telling me to push from this like really awkward position. And I was just like, I just feel like I want to get up and squat. And they were just like, no, lay back. We got to see what's going on. And anyway, it was just a big drama. Then they were like, his blood pressure is dropping. You got to push. And so I just like was like, oh no, and I just started pushing, and boom, he came out so fast that he ripped with his, I don't know if it was his shoulder or what it was, ripped the left side of my pelvic floor coming out. So like on the inside, ripped it, like, and I literally, like, it was so bad that they went and took me into surgery, and they were having a hard time closing. I lost so much blood they had to give me blood because I literally almost like bled out, and they had a really hard time suturing it up. Either way, I have serious trauma on the left side of my pelvic floor. And so over the years, I didn't know this. So I didn't, back then, this was 14 years ago when I had my first one, I didn't know that when you have a cut or a scar from having to, for anywhere, like let's say you have a C-section or you have any kind of scarring anywhere, that shuts the muscle down. Same thing with C-section. It shuts the muscle down, deactivates it, okay? So I went for years not knowing that half of my pelvic floor, it was literally atrophying because I wasn't even realizing that that was something I needed to deal with specifically. Okay, so long story short, here I am years later. I'm talking to our pelvic floor physical therapist who works with my ladies in my program, Dr. Lexi. I was like, I'm having issues and I'm not sure what it is. So we did a lot of troubleshooting. We realized that 14 years ago, I had a bad tear on the left side, and my right side is super tight to compensate for the lack of strength on the left side. So how did that play out? Why am I talking about this? I'm talking about pain. If you experience pain, it's a sign that something's not right when you're doing a particular exercise. So here's how it manifested with me. So now, like if I run for a long time, if I jog for a long time, if I am on the trampoline for a long time, if I'm playing anything that requires me to do a lot of really impactful movement, just like for quite some time, I start getting back pain. It's like, how does that relate it? So what happens is I have one side that's very weak. So then I have one side over here that's strong, tries to compensate for this side, but this side gets really tight and locks down all the way up into my back. Okay. And this is something that I see with lots of women who they're doing an exercise. They feel okay when doing it, but then afterwards they're experiencing pain that persists and they're not sure why. Okay. So what happens is, the pain, the body usually compensates for weakness by having something else overuse or overwork, and then that can create pain in the body. I had somebody else come to me who had knee pain, and it was because of something that was weak here in her core. Somebody else who had a weak deep core, and they were having hip pain because their hips had to take up for the slack in the deep core. So what happens is, if you have core weakness, other things have to pick up the slack, and it can cause pain in peripheral areas that seem unrelated, but it's a sign that something is not quite right. So that's why I say it's so important to listen to your body. Don't push through pain. Pay attention to it and start to assess. Like in my full program, I have them do all different types of assessments to see, like, how is my posture? How is my hip rotation? Do I have an anterior pelvic tilt, a posterior pelvic tilt? All these things are really important, because when you go to do exercises, if your body is out of alignment, if there's something weak and another part is compensating for the weak side, then you can start experiencing pain in the part that's really trying to overwork, because they're trying to do not only their job, but they're trying to do another part's job, most likely somewhere in your core that is exhibiting weakness. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to go through these questions in a minute. I know I'm saying a lot. Okay, so the last thing I want to point out is leaking. If you're experiencing leaking, that is a sign that something's not quite right, okay? I have mom friends. We go out and do play dates with our kids, and we'll go to a trampoline park, or we'll go do something that, oh no, I can't do that, I leak. I mean, these are moms who haven't had babies in like 7, 10, plus years. So it's been many years postpartum, and they just have opted out of certain activities because they still leak, and that is actually something that you can be fixed. But a lot of times we don't know, and we just think this is our new mom body and that's it. So either we don't do it, or we push through it and we wear pain liners. I know people who wear pain liners when they do certain things because they know that they're going to leak. So leaking is a sign that something's not quite right. And it's not always, I just want to plug here, that's not always that you have a weak pelvic floor. It could also mean that you have a tight pelvic floor. And this is something that, again, Dr. Lexi likes to share with our ladies. She's our pelvic floor physical therapist who works with our ladies and our programs. But she likes to share this analogy. It's as if, think of your pelvic floor like your hand trying to catch a ball, okay? If your hand is wide open and a ball comes to you, can you catch it? No, it's going to roll right off. That's kind of like having a weak pelvic floor, okay? If it's not strong and it's not even able to catch it, we're not going to catch the ball, okay? So, but on the opposite side, if it's really tight and a ball comes, can you catch it? No, you can't, because it's too tight. It has to be in the middle. It has to be able to have strength to catch it, but it can't be so tight that it's not able to get that full contraction to catch. And so that's why it's important that you assess, so you know what's going on with your body, and also that you recognize if there's leaking. It doesn't just mean do a bunch of Kegels either. It means we need to figure out what's going on. Am I loose? Am I weak? Am I tight? And then we need to work on that. Okay, so those are the 3 things that I really want you to pay attention to when it comes to figuring out what exercises are good for you. Like, give an example. Let's say you're doing burpees. If you're doing burpees, you go down into the plank, you do a push-up, you see bulging, you're not ready for that. If you get out of the burpee, you jump up and you leak, you're not ready for that, If you feel back pain after you do a billion burpees, you're not ready for that. If you feel hip pain, you're not ready for that. Some things need to be worked on before you go into that. And it doesn't mean you will never get there. It's temporary. You just have to strengthen the deep core. You have to get those things in alignment. And then you can go back to all those exercises. So don't feel like you should be afraid to exercise. I just want you to be more body aware and know that you need to work on those things first and then come back to those in a progressive way.